Very good evening, Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you for joining the Sai Satcharitra Parayan. I hope you all have had a very good day. Let us continue from chapter 16. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Shri Saraswataya Namaha, Om Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Sai Satcharitra, the life and teachings of Shri Sai Baba, chapter 16, a narration about Brahmanyana, part 1. My obeisance to Sri Ganesh, to Sri Saraswati and Sri Guru Maharaj, to the family deity, to Sri Sita Ramachandra, my most humble obeisance. I bow in reverence to the most venerable Guru, Sri Sainath. The King of Kings, Lord Paramount, enthroned on the throne of peace, Master of the Empire of the blissful self, and our one and only refuge, Sri Guru Raj. To him let us make obeisance. On his either side are being waved gently the two chauris, feather brushes of steadfast devotion and sahaj sthiti, sahaj samadhi, and fanning him with great reverence are swanubhuti, direct intuitive perception of the divine, and instant experience. Self-absorption is the royal parasol over his head. Peaceful, benign feelings are the staff in the hands of his royal staff bearers. The Shadripus and Maya, temptations, etc., will not endure here, even for a moment. Oh, for the splendor of his royal court, 4 Vedas, 6 darshanas, 18 Puranas are the royal minstrels that sing his praises. The radiance of pure knowledge forms the brilliant awning overhead, and inner bliss, dense and thick, suffuses the atmosphere. Detachment, devotion, pure knowledge, listening, reflection, contemplation, incessant concentration on the self, and actual perception of God. These are his 8 ministers of state engaged in his service. How beautiful. Today being Thursday and it is Guruvar, it is Baba's day. We say Guruvar is any Guru's day. So we usually do Sai Baba's puja, evening aarti. It's a very beautiful day actually. It's a most blessed day. And today if you see what Baba's saying here is, what are the things that represent him? What is the mark of the divinity? What are the things that will actually make you be with him? And also on the path of spirituality itself. And how do you attain spiritual being is what is being said here. I don't think we need to go into the deeper aspects of this, what it means. In fact, the earlier chapters we've discussed about this enough. So let us go one by one from the last verse, which is detachment. What does detachment mean? Detachment means that you cannot be attached to all your material worldly things like your family, relatives, friends, job, your wealth, your asset, you name it. You're just so lost in that. You keep saying it's my children, it's my grandchildren, I need to do this, I need to build a house. So many different things are your desires. You're attached continuously with something or the other. You cannot have any of that if you need to be with the divine. So detachment is the most important thing. That's the first word here. Devotion. Devotion is such a beautiful thing, but it is not so easy to attain. To attain devotion, first you need to give up desires, you have to give up your detachment, you need to become dispassionate, and you need to be able to discriminate between the truth, which is like you cannot get lost in this material world. You need to understand the entire material world itself is unreal, and that is something you need to attain. And once you have that, then comes the faith, then you have to surrender, then love. Devotion comes at the end. But here Baba's saying who are the 8 ministers, which means who are the 8 the aspect of the what are the different qualities that is there to attain Baba. Who are the 8 qualities that are always around Baba? It could be even the Ashtasiddhis. Who are these Ashtasiddhis? It's not necessarily this is the one, but I'm just saying. And Ashtasiddhis are the 8 divine aspects, which is always with any divine, including like Lord Sri Krishna. When we say he's married to he's married to 108 wives, the 8 are the Ashtasiddhis, the Ashtalakshmis. Similarly, here, the 8 ministers in Baba's case is mentioning is detachment, devotion, pure knowledge. What is the pure knowledge? Pure knowledge means it is the truth, the knowledge which gives you an understanding about what is the truth in this world. Who is God? Who am I? Who is this body? That is pure knowledge. It's not the material worldly knowledge. It is not the knowledge that you have achieved in your material world, like you're a PhD, you're engineering, you're an MBA. I don't know what all there is. That's not knowledge. The pure knowledge is the knowledge about the truth. Listening. Oh wow, this is very important. When we do a satsang, you have to listen. It cannot hear. Your mind has to be focused. You have to concentrate here. You have to be in oneness with what is being taught to you. That is what listening means. Then reflection. Wow, that's again beautiful. A very, very important thing. One is to listen. Then you have to go and reflect on it. What exactly is being taught? Why is something being told to you? Why is something being said? And what is the importance of that? You have to reflect with your own life. You have to reflect around what's going on. And how does this knowledge apply? So that is something you need to reflect, contemplate. You have to contemplate. You need to think, why, how is this? You have to keep contemplating. And then you will arrive at an answer. That answer will further take you towards the truth. It'll guide you on, it'll give you the answers. From that answers, you will either it'll be questions or it'll be answers, and then you will further evolve in the subject. So you'll have to go deeper in the subject. Incessant concentration. This is the most important thing. We cannot concentrate even for 5 minutes on a particular subject. Our mind is always wandering. It's full of thoughts. It just cannot concentrate and even sit there in that ekagrit even for a 5 minutes. Today we have lost the ability of concentration. We cannot, we don't want to read today. If you look at the whole social media, everything from the print media, or even the, like earlier everything used to be like articles and we have to go read. Today if you look at, everything is video based. You're just watching it. We human beings don't even have the attention span for more than 30 seconds. That is the level we have reached. So you need to concentrate. And it is very important that you concentrate and understand. When you concentrate, your mind is in that. And then you will be able to absorb the knowledge. Then concentration on the self. The self, you have to concentrate on it. You have to meditate on it. This is extremely important. If you do not understand, then how will you evolve towards the path of realizing who the self is? And actual perception of God. Yes. So the only way to attain God is through your Guru, the great master. Guru is the doorway to God. Simply the reason being, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. The Parabrahma manifests in the form of the Guru. So whoever your Guru, it could be Sai Baba, whoever you think your Guru is, you have to believe that he is God Almighty. So first you have to have the perception of God. When you say perception of God, you need to have that faith in him that he is Lord Almighty. And through him you will realize, you will understand who this God is. You will experience, he will give you the direct knowledge about who God is. He will give you that experience. But first you need to get to that level to even having the devotion and the faith in your Guru. These are his 8 ministers of state engaged in his service. So this is what he's saying. They are always engaged in his service, which means this is how the devotee has to be. This is the service that you will be able to offer to your master. And that is what is extremely important for you to attain your spiritual will. He whose throat is adorned by the divine gems, peace and self-restraint, whose melodious speech transports the nectar from the ocean of Vedanta, at the sight of whose hand raised high to strike with the lustrous sharp-edged sword of knowledge, the tree of worldly life which trembles with fear. Absolutely. He's talking about Baba. How Baba is always ready to impart knowledge. When he speaks, it says, whose melodious speech transports the nectar from the ocean of Vedanta. It gives the nectar, which means it talks about the sweetness of the divine. What is this universe all about? Who God is? How beautiful divine is? That is what he's going to give you, that nectar. And then at the sight of whose hand raised high to strike with the lustrous sharp-edged sword of knowledge, the tree of worldly life which trembles with fear. Absolutely. It is said you have to cut asunder your ignorance with the sword of knowledge. He is the sword of knowledge. The knowledge is him. And when he strikes you, even though it says the worldly life will tremble with fear. Yes, you should, your worldly life should tremble with fear when you understand the truth, and your ignorance should go away. This is what is mentioned here. Glory to be such a one as you, O pure immortal Yogi Raja, who are beyond the gunas and have assumed this human form only for the benefit of others and for the upliftment of meek and the poor. In the last chapter, the story was narrated of how, for confirming the devotee in his faith, Baba brought about the fulfillment of his vow and gave him the mark that he knew his secret. The Sadguru is forever satiated in all his desires. How can a devotee then satisfy his desires? In fact, it is the Guru who satisfies the devotee's wish of serving the Guru, thereby making him free of all desires. Absolutely. It is only when you serve your master can you be absolved and redeemed of all your, when I say redeemed, you'll be freed from all the desires, because desires are constantly hankering you, because of which you're going to keep running after that desire. And it is beautifully said in Bhagavad Gita, unfulfilled desire ensues anger, and because of anger then you go loss of reasoning, then your intellect is not functioning properly, and then all that culminates and you finally get into delusion. Instead of all that, here, when you serve the master, the great divine being, the Guru himself, then what happens is, as you keep serving, he absolves all your desires. The only desire remains of serving the Guru alone, the divine being alone. Then there remains nothing. A flower, a leaf, when offered with devotion, will be lovingly accepted by him. The same, when offered with pride and conceit, he will spurn, turning his head away at once. Absolutely. And this is, I think we've talked about this enough. Whatever that you offer, even if it's a leaf of a tulsi, you should offer with absolute faith and with the devotion, not with some self-conceit. I'm giving because I need something. That should never be the intention. Whatever you offer, give it with your absolute, that feeling of I want to offer, just with that love, that devotion and that faith. That is what you have to offer. There should not be a hidden agenda why you're offering anything. There should never be like, I can only offer so much. No, whatever it might be, give with love. It has to come from the bottom of your heart to offer anything to the divine being. I think we've even done a lot about this in the previous 2 chapters. Actually, this chapter is also going to talk about the same thing, and this is going to be wonderful. He who is the ocean of truth, knowledge and joy, of what importance are to him these details of ritualistic worship, but when offered with faith and devotion, he accepts them gladly. Under the cover of not knowing anything, he in reality removes ignorance and gives us knowledge without transgressing the limits set by the Shastras. He imparts instruction to his devotees in pleasant manner. It's said again, how beautifully he gives you knowledge, how he, imparts instructions to his devotees in a most suited manner to them. When he is served faithfully, the worshipper experiences oneness with the Brahman, abandon all other means and serve the Guru in utmost humility. Absolutely true. You know what? Forget about every other thing. You don't even need to do anything else. The only means to attain the divine is only by the service unto your Guru with utmost humility. A little bit of ego and pride and conceit and whatever self-deceit, I'm sorry, you'll be thrown out. Trust me. You can only get so many opportunity, but beyond that, if you go on with your mind's self-conceit, you can't survive there. Because serving a Guru is not so simple. You need to have that humility. You need to have the goodness at heart. You need to have that faith. You're not doing because you have an ulterior motive, because you want to attain something. Lord Sri Krishna says that even when you come with an intention that I'm going to get this because I'm devoted or I'm serving, then that purpose itself gets defeated. You cannot do something with a desire, even saying, okay, if I serve my Guru, I'm going to get spiritual benefit. If you do that service with that intention, that service is not going to fructify, trust me. So whatever you do, you have to only do because you love, you want to offer that love, you want to offer that seva unto your Guru, because you want to evolve on your spiritual wheel, not with any hidden agenda, and not at all with ego and arrogance. It's only with humility. Slightest negligence in that service or even a suspicion of over smartness in it will only harm the seeker. What is needed here is steadfast faith in the Guru. Please, I'll reread this, embed in your mind. Slightest negligence in that service or even a suspicion of over smartness in it will only harm the seeker. What is needed here is steadfast faith in the Guru. See, what happens if you look at, there are a lot of stories of great masters and their disciples and the devotees. We all want to outdo another, or we want to show how great we are because we want special favors from the guru. It's a human nature to have that kind of attitude. So here it's saying, if you cannot, if you even the slightest negligence means you have to be extremely perfect. You can't neglect something. You cannot show your negligence or your over smartness. And and it has to be done only so that you want to serve genuinely. It is not about getting a praises. Your guruji is not praising you because you have done something great and somebody's done something lesser than you. There's no comparison in that perspective at all. See, as is your faith, so are your experiences. To each his own. This is something people do not seem to understand. They come and measure the devotion, or they come and measure even the service or seva. Oh, there is no measurement here. The only thing you need to come with is goodness of the heart. You need to do it from your innermost being, that I want to serve my guru, because you have that faith in him. That's the reason you want to do this service, not for anything else. So don't show your over smartness, or trying to compare yourself with somebody. You're actually not going to go anywhere. There's no progress going to go happen. And on the contrary, oh, please be ready, you're going to regress down, further down to the gutters. So don't do that. Whatever service you want to do it from your, do it with love. The only thing, the focus should be that I want to serve my guru. That's it. It's not about trying to see who's doing what and I want to outsmart him. There was a point in my life, it was very cute how my guruji, he loves to, it's not, I don't know what the right word to use. It's not about comparison. He ignites the fire of that, I want to be the highest devotee. The reason he does that is not because you have to compare or compete with somebody. The reason he does that is so that your devotion can go, the fervor to serve or be the highest will grow in you, not for any other purpose. And once he just ignited this fire in me, and he said, I have this student in Singapore, and she's like, really, she's done so many different things, and she's the number one in my world. That word number one, I couldn't even take it. Why? Because I wanted to be that number one, and to me, I cannot take being a number two in my life. So it just, that one thing that I heard from him triggered that, no, I will do everything that it takes. I have to be his highest devotee. So that's what he ignited in me. But it's not with a comparison. There is no comparison. Look, that individual is perfect in their place. I am perfect. Nobody can take my position, or nobody can be devoted like me. It is my individuality, which means, like, to each his own. How I am devoted, or how I serve him, or how I offer my devotion has no comparison to anybody. And this devotion, you have to make an effort to evolve. See, there's a very beautiful even verse taught by Lord Sri Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam. In Canto 3, it is mentioned. I don't know which Canto, part 1 or part 2, I don't know. But in that, my Guruji actually drew this beautiful, like a chart, as like, giving that hierarchy. How do you actually attain devotion? Devotion is the last thing that you attain. First, you have to go through the process of evolving to that level. Devotion is not attained overnight. So there's a slight mistake how people make. Just because they have bhakti doesn't mean they're devoted. Bhakti is just you're practicing. But the devotion we are talking about is single pointed devotion, and that single pointed devotion comes only with the grace of the divine himself. Nobody else can give it to you. You cannot. You know what? Even today, you might be, yes, you're devoted single pointedly, but in your mind there's other things going on. So where is the single pointed devotion then? It can't happen. So for you to get that absolute oneness, which is there is where Lord Sri Krishna himself has said that the highest form of devotion is Raganuga Bhakti, where you can only see that God in everything. The highest point, the highest devotion that you can ever attain to him. To get to that state, you have to first, give up your ego, arrogance, the identity with this body, I, me, myself, all that has to fall off. And to go there, you have to go through the sadhana, whatever your guru does. And for one of the most important process is Guru Seva. And that is extremely important, because you have to first redeem yourself with all the karma and all the gutter stuff that you carry with you, the tendencies, your vasanas from so many different lives, your inherent nature. You have to overcome all of that. And then the service has to be done with absolute humility. And then the guru tests you. He puts you through a lot of tests. It's not going to come so easily. And once you evolve, and then finally that stage when it comes, then you attain the devotion. The God Almighty Himself will grant you that devotion. So that is how it works. It's not so simple or so easy as it looks. These are very profound truth. And here it has been taught through simple stories. We have been given, because we are simple human beings with a simple mind and simple understanding. So the stories are narrated. What should you do? That is what is important. So take the essence of that lesson. That is more important. So moreover, see, here is mentioned, what is needed here is steadfast faith in the Guru. Then, moreover, what does a devotee do by his own efforts? Nay, it is the Sadguru who facilitates whatever he does. For the devotee does not know his own difficulties, and it is the Guru who helps him overcome them, though he does not know it. Absolutely true. We all think, I did it, I am the doer. Please, you're nobody. You know what? The Guru himself will facilitate all of that for you, so that you can evolve on that path. And he knows what are your difficulties, and he helps you overcome them. That's exactly who this Guru is. The greatest mother on planet Earth, not planet Earth, this entire universe. It's said Krishnam Jagat Gurum, and this Jagat Gurum is the mother and the Guru of this entire universe. And he's the mother that you can never imagine. You can never even imagine that you will have in this world. It's so beautiful. He's the mother of this entire universe. That is who he is. Absolute compassionate. There is no other benefactor in all the three worlds than the Guru himself. Let us then surrender wholeheartedly to him, who is the greatest everlasting refuge of the supplicants. Absolutely. It is only at his feet that you can take refuge. There is nobody else who can give that comfort, who can give you that love, who can give you that benediction. Nobody. No other mother can know you. You're not even the bodily mother who has given you birth will know you what you want. But the Guru, the greatest mother, will know what you want. And he'll only give that which is good for his child, every other child. If the Guru were to be compared to the Chintamani, that divine gem will grant you only that you wish for, whereas to the astonishment of the devotee, the Guru will grant him the most inconceivable of things. Absolutely. I've experienced this very beautifully with my own Krishna Guruji. Sometimes you might want something and you wonder, oh, I need this. This is what is good for my welfare and this is what I need. We think like that. But you know what? There's always a different plan for you. And when the divine gives you whatever on his own, that's the most beautiful thing. Because you wouldn't even have imagined that, you wouldn't even have asked for it. It would be always super exceeding, far exceeding what you would have even desired. It's like that. And when they give it in such a beautiful manner, you'll just feel humbled, very humbled. This is how they do. So you can't even, that's what it says, it's inconceivable of things, and you cannot even conceive what it could be. And it has such hidden gems with what it comes, and that's pure. There is no karma, there'll be no sins accruing with that. That is how it is. It'll come well blessed, and that will last with you. Why? Because it has come from the Guru himself. You don't even have to ask. So never ask. What has to come to you will come to you. And when it comes on its own will, that is very beautiful, because it comes with the blessing of the divine. If compared to the Kalpataru, that wish fulfilling tree of Indra's heaven satisfies only what the devotee desires, but Guru Raya gives to him the most unimaginable state of nirvikalpa or super consciousness. Kamadhenu, the wish-fulfilling cow, instantly gives whatever is wished for, but far greater than her is the Guru, the divine cow. Who else but he can be adorned with the title, the giver of the inconceivable? Absolutely true. That which you cannot conceive. The knowledge of the truth, the direct experience of God, he'll give you that experience of what the truth is all about. That is who he is. And now I have only one request to make to the listeners, to listen attentively to the story which I have said at the end of the last chapter that I would narrate, the story about the man who came to Baba desiring to know the Brahman. Listen now to the summum bonum of life as to how Baba satisfied the man who came to him with a fond wish to get Brahmanyana, and how Baba instructed him and also his own devotees. Saints are always free from desires, being completely satiated already, but the devotees are full of desires, which always remains unfulfilled, because we are never satisfied with our life. We constantly hanker after things. So when is our desire going to end? And this is what the divine beings do. I think this whole, so far what I've read, talks about how when you do the Guru Seva, he'll remove all the desires out of you, and then he will grant you what that which is good for you. Some ask for a son, some for an everlasting kingdom, some wish to have faith and devotion, but only will, rare will rare will one ask for liberation from the worldly life. Absolutely. Nobody comes and asks, oh, I want to get moksha. I want to. And you know what Lord Sri Krishna has said? Even if you ask that I want moksha, that also is a desire. So don't even ask. You just have to say, I need a spiritual wheel. Let the grace be that I evolve on the path of spirituality. That is all you should say. You don't need to ask even moksha or liberation. What has to give? Let the divine give. No, why you are bothered? One such devotee of simple faith, who always was engrossed in accumulating wealth, once had a strong urge to take Baba's darshan, as he had heard of Baba's great renown. At home, he had everything in abundance, wealth, children, a host of servants. Yet, he wished to have Baba's darshan, as Baba was the very image of munificence. Baba, he thought, is a great Brahmanyani, the brightest gem among the sadhus and saints. Let me place my head on his feet, for his ways are inscrutable. I want for nothing, so let me ask for Brahmanyana. If I can get even this very easily, I shall be blessed indeed. Very easily. Oh my God. That's amazing. Oh, our mind can make us think whatever we want. Huh? Brahmanyana very easily. Let's wait and see what Baba has to say. His friend then said to him, it is not easy to know the Brahman, and to a greedy person like you, it is the most difficult that it should reveal itself. Absolutely. Brahmanyana cannot, people come with a very stupid understanding that this Brahmanyana is everybody's birthright. And especially to greedy people or whatever, right? The people who don't want to put effort, they think they can easily attain it. Oh my God, I didn't know this. I wish it was so simple that then the whole world would have got liberated, no? Why only the chosen ones? You who know no other source of happiness except wealth, wife and children and the like, Brahman, to you is an aberration. How will it bring you any peace or happiness? When the bodily organs become feeble, the world does not care for you. It is then that the idle mind whiles away its time, spinning away the yarn of the Brahman. Of such a kind is your curiosity about the Brahman. Miserly that you are, and reluctant to part even with even a pice, you will not find anyone who will satisfy your wish. However, with such a desire in his heart, the seeker of Brahman set out to go to Shirdi, having engaged a tonga for the return journey too. And thus he arrived at Sai's feet. He took Sai's darshan and made an obeisance at his feet. And now listen, O listeners, to the sweet words that Sai addressed to him. For this Kalpataru of Sai's tales, when watered by the water of attentive listening, will take a firm root, and as the listener's reverence grows, so will it bring forth an abundance of fruit. It will become succulent in each and every part, will blossom into fragrant flowers, will bow down with the weight of delicious fruit, and the desire of the enjoyers will be satisfied. So he said, Baba, please show me the Brahman. With the sole desire in my heart have I come. People say that Shirdi Baba shows Brahman without any delay. Oh my God. Hence I have come all this long way, and after my journey I am very tired. But if I can now attain the Brahman, I will have accomplished the object of all my efforts. Baba said, do not worry, I will show you the Brahman promptly at once. There is no question of credit dealings here. But oh, it is people like you who ask for Brahman, who are very rare. It's Baba's way of talking very sarcastically. People do ask for an abundance of wealth and prosperity, or for cure of disease, removal of difficulties, or for fame, honor, power, and authority. It is happiness that they always ask for. People come running to Shirdi only to ask for material pleasures and worship me, a mere fakir for it, but no one asks for the Brahman. Of these pleasure loving people, I have an abundance. It is people like you who are in dearth. And I crave for such seekers after the Brahman, meeting whom is a parvakal for me. By the fear of this Brahman, the sun and the moon move in their set orbits, rising and setting regularly, and the sunlight and the moonlight appear at their appointed time. Absolutely. Lord Sri Krishna has said this in Srimad Bhagavatam, that it is in fear of the sunrise. It is in fear of the divine that the sun rises, or the the fire uh, is there, or the wind is blowing. That is how it is. Not they're not doing this because they are programmed to do that, but it is in fear that this entire universe works in tandem in exact clockwork precision. Huh? So also the seasons, summer and spring and winter, come and go in their proper order, and Indra and other gods, the guardians of the people, appointed to the 8 directions, look after their subjects. All this takes place due to this his Brahman. Hence, before the physical body is cast off, a wise man attains the highest objective of life, that is Brahman, or else the continuous cycle of birth and death pursues him relentlessly. If the body falls without having known his Brahman, the bondage of worldly life will follow and rebirth will become inevitable. I hope you understood this. What he's simply saying is that where our physical body is cast off, a wise man attains highest objective, that is Brahman, or else the continuous cycle of birth and death pursues him relentlessly. And who is a wise man? They are only the knowers of the truth, and there are hardly any today. You can count on your fingers. It's not everybody who go after this pursuit in their life. So that's what Baba is saying. So rare is such person who's coming and asking me, please show me Brahman. I want to attain Brahman. How? And that's Baba's way of talking. And I shall now, I shall show you not only the Brahman, but the entire coil or the essence, that is Brahman, which is enveloping you from tip to toe, and which I shall unwind and separate. Oh, how nectar sweet was that speech, a mine of the highest, the most incomparable bliss, which had the power to uplift even those who wavered in their doubts. So sweet. Baba's way of talking is beautiful, but he actually spoke the truth. The truth here is he's saying everybody comes to him with material wants. Nobody comes and says, I need a spiritual will. I want to attain moksha. I want to get liberated. I want to attain the Brahman. Nobody comes with that. They all come because their desires has to be satisfied. This is what Baba is saying. By the power of Baba's words, those engaged day and night in the pursuit of transient fleeting pleasures will also be guided firmly to the path prescribed by the Shastras. If Chintamani, Ganesh, is pleased, all the material pleasures are attained. If Mahendra is pleased, the wealth of heaven is gained. But more remarkable than these is the Guru, for there is no benefactor like the Guru who will reveal the heart to attain Brahman to his devotee when he is pleased. Please know that the only way you can attain moksha is by the grace of your Guru. I'll actually try to recollect a very beautiful um, the prayer to the Guru. How do you attain that moksha? It says, Dhyana Moolam Gurur Padam. Sorry. Okay, I can't remember, but I will go back and recollect, and I will share this with you tomorrow. So there's very 3 lines, stotras of how do you attain, who grants you the moksha. That is what is mentioned. And you should know this and keep it in your heart. It's only when the Guru is pleased with your devotion, with your seva, after going through all the process that he puts you through, and when he is pleased, he will grant that to you. You cannot get it on your own, no matter what you try. You can go and pray to hundreds of God on this planet Earth. Nobody else except for the Guru himself, only on testing you. And when he gets pleased and he knows you are worthy of that experience and that knowledge, then he imparts that, and then he grants it to you, not otherwise. By listening to that sweet tale, all the cares and sorrows of worldly life will be forgotten. Baba also knew too well how to instruct the seekers of Brahman. So he then made him sit down, engaging his attention elsewhere for a moment, and making him feel as if he had forgotten all about his question. And then what Baba did was he called one boy to him, saying, Go quickly to Nandu and give him the message. Baba urgently needs to borrow 5 rupees. So give quickly the money for the occasion to be returned shortly. The boy went to Nandu's house, but there was a lock on his door. So he at once came back and told Baba so. Baba said, Go back again, go to the grocer Bala. Maybe he is at home, and give him the same message. Bring back the money, go quickly. But even this trip was wasted, for even Bala was not at home. The boy narrated to Baba all that had happened. Baba sent him in great haste on the same errand to one or two other places. The boy grew quite weary of these unprofitable trips, but was not able to bring back even a pice. Baba knew full well that neither Nandu nor Bala nor any of the others would be at home, for Maharaj had intuitive knowledge about everything. He's all knowing, he's all pervading. Himself a living, conversing Brahman, will Baba ever be short for a mere 5 rupees? But it was all a sport for the benefit of this that seeker of Brahman. I'm going to reread this. You need to understand what is being said here. Himself a living, conversing Brahman. What does that mean? He is the God Almighty. He is that Parabrahma. You're not conversing with any ordinary human being. That Guru is the Parabrahma himself. He is the Lord Almighty. Looks like a mere mortal, and don't judge him. People look at him, though they are talking to the Parabrahman, and you think you're talking to some Guru, some human being in the form of a Guru. No, he's the Lord himself. Who are the Parabrahman that you want to know? When you know him, you know the Parabrahman. Will Baba ever be short for a mere 5 rupees? But it was all a sport for the benefit of the seeker of Brahman. When a sweet dish or shira is prepared in honor of a guest who comes home, the feast is enjoyed by all the others too. Similarly, this Brahma Bhokta was but a pretext put forward by Maharaj to instruct his devotees for the benefit of all. Absolutely. The lesson is not just for one. Whenever the Guruji teaches a lesson, it is always benefiting people around. He's not looking at one individual to get that lesson. The way he imparts knowledge is profound. I've always wondered, how does my Guruji would do. Sometimes he's actually giving me, he's giving me a rundown, and he'll tell me, you didn't do this, you didn't do. He's going to teach in his own way. But sometimes that lesson is not for me, though the lesson is for me as well. But there are people around, they're also getting the same lesson. But you know what the mind says? Oh, the lesson is for her, not for me. This is how your mind talks. But please know that there is a way how the Guruji teaches. Sometimes he gives you the direct lesson, sometimes he's telling it through you, sometimes he's giving somebody a peace of mind. But please know that that peace of mind might not be for that person. That peace of mind is for you. This is how the Guruji's work. They don't even, you cannot fathom how they teach. Their method of teaching is so beautiful. It's indescribable. Every single instance in my life is so different how I am taught. And actually, I can tell you this very beautiful story. I think I've narrated time and again, but I like to again say this. I came with this hunger. Remember, I had this competition. I want to be your highest devotee. I want to be the number one disciple and all that. Because of my ego, the first time he started Bhagavad Gita, I almost fell asleep. Not fell asleep. I couldn't understand much. It took him 3 months to finish finish that study. Giving that whole scripture. We finished in 3 months, and after that, I'm like, okay. Now he said, now you start reading about the life stories of all the sages or saints. So he would give me one small text, and then one day, finally, in Singapore, it so happened when he was there. No, I also want to learn. This very beautiful text called Tripura Rahasyam. This is a beautiful text, a teaching. It's a lesson taught by Lord Dattatreya to Parshuram. It's a very beautiful text, very profound. And I want to learn that. That is the first text when my Guruji, started his journey on the path of spirituality. He learned from his Gurudev, Lord Dattatreya himself. That is who he is. And so that's the first text he learned, the scripture. And so I was like, I want to learn this too. And so what happened was, he said, oh, do you want to learn? And he went full speed. He started, we were just reading as though we're reading some text. And I didn't understand a word. I said, no, I don't know. And then I said, I'll just let it be. So we did, I think, halfway through the book. And I said, I can't understand a word what you're teaching here. And then I let it be. But I was very upset. I was not able to get anything. I don't know. I was quite eager. So most important thing is you have to let it be, which is what I didn't understand. It's my ego. The ego saying, I want to know. Who is this I who wants to know? See, I cannot know. You should understand. There is only one. It's only know. The knowledge is the truth. I cannot know the knowledge. Knowledge is within, and that has only what the Guruji does is he uncovers that veil of ignorance, and then the knowledge will be self-effulgent within you. So until 2014 Jan, trust me, I didn't know anything. And in 2014 Jan, finally on that day, he announced to me, I've not even started your spiritual journey. You know that? That was crumbling of my ego. Literally, it got crushed under his feet. I felt miserable. I don't know how to explain what I felt. I could only cry. I said, I'm very sorry. And then very sweetly, he just, I fell at his feet. He lifted me up. He said, don't worry. I'm always there. Why are you worrying? And then, what he did, the most sweetest thing, even today, I just start crying at that experience. He took the Tripura Rahasyam and he handed it in my hand and he said, let's do this now. When the Guru gives at the right timing, that is when the knowledge will come, not when you want it and not how you want it. So please always know this. There are a lot of people who come and say a lot of nonsensical things to my Guruji. They think this knowledge can be got anyway. And they come and tell my Guruji, oh, in Golok Brindavan, is there a backdoor entry? Oh, I want to, why should it make it so tough? Why should it be like, to attain the spiritual knowledge or to attain the divine, why should it be so difficult? See, that is the whole beauty of spirituality, that it is not for everyone. It is only for those who can go on that path. That path is very difficult, that path is tough, but who has that heart, who has that will, know that with the faith in the Guru, you can cross any path in this universe. Nothing shall befall. That is the faith. When the divine's hand is on you, the benediction is on you, why do you think you can't do it? But first you need to put that your step forward and you say, yes, I will walk the path. And for those who think that, they want to just fly away, yeah, but they want that, they want to attain Lord Sri Krishna, or they want to attain the Brahman, but they want it, on a platter. They just want to be fed in their mouth and just given it to them. You think it is such a simple thing? See, this body is like a temple. How do you welcome the divine? We have to first clean it. We have to make it, pure. How do we, what do we do in the temple, in the shrine of the divine? First, we clean the whole dirt around. Then we clean the God. And then we dress him accordingly. All that is, we do that, right? Similarly, this body has a muck from so many different lives. So, we have to clean it. The purification of your heart and mind has to happen first. Only then can you surrender unto the Guru. And once you surrender, then he takes you on that journey. Not otherwise, not before that. So it's a process, and that spiritual process is very beautiful. What seems very painful, at times, is the nectar, the sweet at the end. That's what it is. It's nectar. It's divine. That bliss is what you will experience. But right at the end, not initially. So you have to go through that journey to understand the truth of life and what the truth is all about, and to be able to every single day experience the divine in whatever capacity, and cry for him. Just speaking this lesson, I was teleported back to getting the same experience, falling at my Guruji's feet and how he handed over that scripture to me. That was the most beautiful thing that happened. And since then, trust me, I'm not asked if I want to learn this or I don't want to learn this. Whatever he wills, I just go as per his will. And when you surrender, he opens up the knowledge. Even this satsang, I didn't say I want to do it. It is his will. He chose me, and this body is mere an instrument. This body has no knowledge. Trust me, zero knowledge. It's not even capable of even, saying anything from here. It is he who is talking through my mouth. He gets it done. That is what even Baba is saying. We are just mere an instrument in the hands of the divine. So, coming back. So Maharaj to instruct his devotee. Okay. In that seeker's pocket, there was a bundle of notes worth more than 250 rupees. And Sainath knew it. So this person who had come asking for, wanting to get the experience of Brahman or wanting to know Brahman, he's sitting with his money in his pocket, but he doesn't want to give. And did not that seeker of Brahman know it? Did he not have eyes to see it? But the perplexity of his own doubts and his hesitation restrained him, though the bundles of notes lay in his pocket. Here he comes to ask for revelation, but has not the heart to loan a mere 5 rupees to Sai. And that too, just for a short while. Sai Maharaj, well, he knew, was true to his word, and the amount to be lent, just for a little while, was small too. But the moment he was inclined to lend the money, doubts at once assailed his mind. After all, what was a mere 5 rupees to him? But even that he could not bring himself to part with. Indeed, he was avarice personified, who could not accommodate Sai for such a small amount. Absolutely, I think we've done this enough. You can't, no knowledge can come with first without giving a Guru Dakshina. But this was Baba's test to this person. Whether he's a miser or he's going to be able to remove that 5 rupees and give it to him. Brahmanyana cannot just be attained. It is not given to everybody. And same thing goes for all. Please know that you take the knowledge from the Guruji without giving even one penny Guru Dakshina, you are not going to get any knowledge. That knowledge is never going to fructify within you, no matter what you try. First, that goodness has to be there. There are many times, we go and seek certain things, but it's not going to come. Why? Because you have to do your part of the deal. It's not always the guru, who is always have to keep sacrificing. Yeah, they do all that, they wear themselves out, all that. But what is that you're giving? Even that small dakshina you can't give. What kind of a, I don't know, what kind of a human being are you? You're not even worthy of that being a human being. Had it been any simple, trusting soul who had genuine affection for Sai, he would not have been able to bear the spectacle of borrowing and lending taking place before his very eyes. He who was thirsting for after the Brahmanyana so much could not he have understood the question? I do not think so at all. But he was totally engulfed by his greed and wealth. See, Baba's testing you. How much greedy are you? See, if he was a true devotee, he wouldn't even accept Baba sending somebody to pay, to get the money from someone. He would immediately give it to Baba, offer it to Baba. That is who a devotee is. But these kind of people, by their nature itself, how they are and where they stand. And then he could at least have kept quiet after all this, but no, he was in a mighty hurry to go back and said with impatience, "Oh, Baba Sai, show me the Brahman quickly." Oh my God. I didn't know this is how they work. Wow. Look at the audacity. You don't even have the goodness to take that 5 rupees, and you couldn't even shut your mouth. And on top of it, you're saying, "Baba, please do it fast." Oh, is this what I don't know, showing a movie, is it? I didn't know this. How funny. For the sake of Brahman, one has to surrender the 5 vital. Oh, sorry. Baba then said, "And have I not made any effort so far to show you the Brahman from the place where you are? Have you understood absolutely nothing?" That was the sarcasm. For the sake of the Brahman, one has to surrender the 5 vital airs, the 5 organs of knowledge, the 5 organs of action, ego, intellect, and mind. The path of Brahmanyana is very difficult. It is not easily attainable by one and all. It reveals itself suddenly to the fortunate one when his fortune is in ascendancy. He who is detached and is unaffected by the glory even of the Brahmapada itself, such a one alone has the authority to gain Brahma Vidya, for he is totally detached from all else. I think we did this enough. First, you have to surrender your mind, body, senses, ego, arrogance, intellect, everything, your vital airs. You have to surrender everything. And then it said that the path of Brahmanyana is so difficult. I think I've always said this. People think spirituality means running away from material worldly life. Because when they have something going wrong in their material world, they go after spiritual, not realizing how difficult spiritual is. It's much more difficult than your material worldly life. In your material worldly, you will get things so easily, but in spiritual world, everything is going to become even tougher. And this is one truth that is not understood by any human being. So they'll come into spirituality. I've seen so many disciples coming to my Guruji and saying they want to be on path of spiritual. But when my Guruji puts them on test, they cannot stand it. They go away. They run away. This is what happens. Hardly anybody can stand his test. It's such is a great master, because he wants to see how much you can take it, how much you are going to evolve on that path, how good you are, how you're not going to let your mind or ego talk. This is what it is. So it is very clearly mentioned, even Baba saying this, the path of Brahmanyana is very difficult. It is not easily attainable by one and all. Please know this knowledge of truth is not for everybody. Nobody thinks, there are people who come and visit my Guruji and think that it is their birthright to get that knowledge or have that experience from him. And they come and tell him, "Oh, can I experience the same level of consciousness from you, Guruji? Oh, you think what Guruji and you are one and same? You're from some gutter, you're a kida makoda from some, from world. You think you can compare to Guruji's consciousness? Guruji is not even here. His consciousness is everything. You are trying to get that understanding of consciousness. Can I get that consciousness? Can I get this? Can I get that? Can I get that? Are you first become worthy of it? First, you need to evolve on the path. You don't even consider him your Guruji, and you think somebody has to just give you an experience on the platter. How funny, how strange. Exactly what Baba's telling here. I don't understand how people have the guts to even talk this in front of my Guruji. And my Guruji is so sweet. He watches the fun. He watches the foolishness of a human being, exactly like what Baba did. You think Baba is what, sitting there waiting to, give him the Brahmanyana, but he says he entertains. This is a teaching for everybody. So he does. Guruji just waits and let them talk. He'll allow you to talk as much as you want. You can blabber. You know what? You're falling down so badly. Please know that. Before you open your mouth in front of a great master, think twice. Don't just blabber whatever comes to your mouth. And then my Guruji is watching. Oh, yeah, consciousness. My Guruji says, "Who? I am only nobody. I'm mere mortal." This is how my Guruji will talk. He's such a great divine being. He's Lord Sri Krishna himself. Yet he doesn't ever say anything. He just behaves in absolute humble, like an ordinary human being. People will wonder, oh, who's this? That's why people get, they have this question, because people look at all the attire somebody has to wear, like an ochre cloth or some kind of garment that you have to don. If you're looking at very ordinary, like a human being, how everybody lives, they get doubt. Oh, what can he give an experience? How does he know Brahman? What consciousness does he have? This is how they judge. Please don't, be very careful when you have the grace and you're entering the shrine of a divine master. Show humility. Don't show that arrogance that you know too much, or you, even if you don't know, shut your mouth and listen, and don't try to say, I want to experience that. First of all, my Guruji has not even initiated you. You don't even accept him as your Guruji. How can you ask? What mouth do you ask with? I don't understand. People come and talk whatever comes to their mind. Wow. This is exactly what Baba's teaching here as well. The path of Brahmanyana is very difficult. It is not easily attainable by one and all. It reveals itself suddenly to the fortunate one when his fortune is in ascendancy, and that only can happen with the grace of the Guru, because the Guru himself is the Parabrahman. Who else has to give you that, reveal that knowledge to you? No. When you are in that state, when you've pleased your Guruji, and then he will grant you. So it reveals itself at the perfect timing. You can't ask for it. Anything that you ask is still a desire. This is what Lord Sri Krishna has taught in Bhagavad Gita. If you come with an intention that I want to attain this, that will only make it a self-deceit or a self-conceit. You are still not going to get, because that is also a desire. You cannot even say, I want to attain that. Know this. If it has to come to you, it will come to you. My Guruji taught a very beautiful lesson. You know what he said? Why are you asking all this? If the Lord wills, he will give it, so why bother? Just do what you have to do. You do your sadhana, you do your practice, you be devoted, you do the seva, everything that he's asked you to do. And if the Lord has to give it to you, he will give. Why should you ask for it? This is a very profound truth, and it's so beautiful. It's something that itself is a freedom from all the wants and desires and everything. I've just stopped, asking anything to my Guruji. But sometimes, yeah, I'll say, okay, I'm not interested in this. I want to do this. And there are days he'll say, you better do this. You have to do this. But how things open up is so beautiful. It's amazing. I'm telling you how, that I don't know how to explain these experiences. I'm trying to put it in words, but they are indescribable. That feeling of freedom is tremendous, because when you don't want to ask anything, what has to come to you will come. Your Guru is there. Why are you worried? He's taking care of you, and he will sail you through ahead. But you know what? He's going to kick your ass. Why? Because you have to be good. He's always, driving you towards perfection. He wants you to become the best version of yourself. That is why he's constantly driving you. And know that only the divine, great master can do this. Not even your parents will do this. Trust me. He who is detached and is unaffected by the glory even of the Brahmapada itself, such a one alone has the authority to gain Brahma Vidya. Absolutely. This is very important. You have to be detached. You have to be unaffected of the glory even of the Brahmapada. You cannot have that. You cannot say, oh, I'm the great almighty Lord. You cannot even say those things. You have to be very humble. My Guruji will say, who am I? I am a nobody. I'm a nobody. That's what he says. But the truth is hidden in that. He talks in a cryptic language that I am nobody means I am not that body. And this is what he's saying, but idiots don't understand what to do. They think they know too much. Whoever it is who gives the Brahmanyana, and in however complete a form, will he ever succeed if the seeker does not have even a trace of renunciation? Absolutely. If you cannot have a an iota of renunciation in you, the trace, you think the Gurujis cannot recognize that? They know what you can and what you cannot, so you are not going to get. So they are going to test you first, whether you are even worthy enough of that. Are you do you need to first prove your deservability. My Guruji has always said this. I evaluate people, I put them in the test. Either they stand or they fall off. They fall off, they're going to be out. If they stand, they will be put on to the path. So this is how it works. Those with the highest spiritual authority attain Brahmanyana easily and without any difficulty, but those whose authority is mediocre always have to proceed slowly according to the religious tradition laid down by the Shastras. For one, it is as swift as the flight of a bird. For the other, it is a slow step-by-step climb on the ladder of religious tradition. But for him, without any spiritual authority at all, to attempt to know the Brahman is altogether a fruitless task. Absolutely. You need a spiritual authority. And who is a spiritual? Only a great divine being. The Brahman himself is a spiritual authority. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma. I think I'm just saying this again and again and again, and this is something that you need to understand. Without a spiritual authority, you cannot attain that. And for those who are evolving on the path of religious without a spiritual authority, it's very slow, and it's not guaranteed that you will ever reach. But the only way to attain the divine is through the Guru alone. Guru is the doorway to God, because Guru himself is that Almighty. So understand this truth. My Guruji will always say, I have not found that one, because you need to be that you have to become a clay in his hands. He will mold you how he wants to. That is what has to happen. We need to give up our ego, mind, arrogance, surrender to his will. That is what is required. And finding that such a one is rare in this age of Kali, because we are all in tamas. To rise to sattva is the highest. Goodness is what has to be your mantra. Today, people have lost being good to each other. They're such a mean characters. Everybody lives in misery, and I don't know what in their rut of their mind. They don't even know how to behave nicely with another human being. Goodness is what has to be. Love. Only through that can you get that grace. Not otherwise. That there is no higher, no excellent means of attaining the Brahman without a discriminating knowledge of the real and the unreal is no doubt a very true aphorism of the Vedanta, but is such a discriminating knowledge in the power of everyone. Absolutely. This discriminating knowledge cannot come to everybody. That knowledge can only come with the grace of the Guru. You have to go through that study. Like Lord Sri Krishna or Sri Ram, they had to go through their Guru. Sri Ram studied under the tutelage of Vashishta Muni. Likewise, Lord Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna's Guru was Sandipani, and Lord Sri Krishna also served his Guru. He set an example of why it is important. They might be the divine almighty, yet you have to go through your Guru. The Guru is the highest position that anybody can be, and that respect has to be given to that Guru. And this is what even Lord Sri Ram has set an example. They have taught themselves going through that. They have lived by example. Similarly, likewise, Lord Sri Krishna himself too. So, you are nobody but a mere mortal. So don't have this ego with a Guru. With the deep study and arduous efforts, and when the physical frame is worn down to a skeleton, only then does it dawn slowly in the light of the Guru's grace. Oh my God, I'm going to reread this. Please embed, please, write it down and keep it somewhere so that you can remind how do you attain Brahmanyana. With deep study. Deep means what? Just studying for 1 hour? No. Day and night you have to be on this. Day and night you have to study. Day and night it has to be a continuous effort. I don't know, to whatever time it takes. We don't know the time. Timing is only Lord's will, not yours and mine. And arduous effort. Oh my God. No, people ask, can I get it easy? Why should why should attaining Krishna be so difficult? Is the question asked. Why shouldn't it be difficult? Why shouldn't God, what makes you think that God has to be shown so easily? Are you even worthy enough? You're not even worthy enough. So what makes people ask this question? Ask yourself, are you even worthy enough of that grace? Or worthy enough to understanding God? How pure is your heart? How much can you cry for the divine? That's the question you should first ask. So arduous effort, which is the next criteria. Please know that. How much is your effort that you're going to put in? And when the physical frame is worn down to a skeleton, only then it dawns slowly in the light of Guru's grace. Slowly. You have to first wear yourself out completely. And only then, slowly, with the grace of the Guru, that light dawns on you little by little. When Brahmadeva becomes egoistic and thinks that I am the supreme God, I am the controller, and he forgets his true self, it is then that the universe is created. And actually, here it's saying how Lord Brahma created the universe. It's in that ego, state of ego. But when the knowledge comes that I am myself the Brahman, then the knower becomes one with his real self. And in that moment, the illusion about the reality of this universe is dispelled. So proclaims the Shruti. That's what is said in the Shruti. Once the self-awakening comes, bringing with it the feeling of oneness with the all-pervading Brahman, this universe becomes the sacrificial offering to the fire god that is Brahman. The creation is thus reduced to ashes. So you know what? It is the end of the hour now. I will stop here. We will continue this chapter tomorrow. I think I'm just going to give you the last simple explanation and we'll start from verse 84 tomorrow. Okay? It says, once the self-awakening comes, bringing with it the feeling of oneness with the all-pervading Brahman, this universe becomes the sacrificial offering to the fire god that is Brahman. The creation is thus reduced to ashes. What he's simply saying is that that self-awakening, it has to awaken within yourself. It's not going to come from outside anybody and nobody can give. I think the prerequisites of how do you attain that is already mentioned. We discussed this enough. Only with the grace of the Guru can even that self-awakening happen. That awakening, that knock is only done by your master and nobody else. When that happens, you will experience that oneness with everybody, everything, this entire universe. Then this duality is offered as a sacrificial, as a sacrifice to the fire god, which means this entire creation then becomes one. You become one with this entire creation, and then you know there is no creation existing. You see, you have become that Brahman. There's only one alone. There is no duality that exists. This is the understanding that dawns, and that is when you will be able to see God in everything, and you'll understand that this entire creation is the Brahman himself. That is what is mentioned here. So with this, we stop for today. I'll see you all tomorrow, 7 p.m. Thank you for joining. You have a very good evening. Om Shri Mahaganapate Namaha, Om Shri Gurudev Datta, Om Shri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Digambara Digambara, Shripad Vallabha Digambara, Om Shri Krishna Guru Nathanataya, Shri Guruve Namaha, Om Devi Durgaya Namaha, Om Shri Krishna Arpanam Namastu, Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru.